For more than 45 years, customers turn to Nexeo Plastics for our plastics resin expertise. As a distribution partner, we understand that the right product needs to balance ever-increasing demands for quality, competitive costs, and sustainable solutions. With thousands of products from world-class suppliers, our team of experts can deliver the flexibility and innovative solutions you need, when and where you need them. At Nexeo Plastics, expect more so you can do more.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Joe Pryweller, Conference Director for Plastics News. Welcome to Ask the Expert at the 2021 Executive Forum Virtual Edition. Ask the Expert is your chance to engage with professionals on a range of topics and to interact with questions. Today's expert is Austin Nichols, Vice President of Product Line and Market Management with Nexeo Plastics. Austin will discuss leadership's role in responding to the new normal and leveraging digital technology to engage employees and connect with customers to solve business challenges. Austin will answer your questions after the presentation. To submit a question, enter it into the Q&A box on the right side of your virtual event screen. Or if you're watching on Plastics News LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube sites, you can submit questions via those platforms. With that, I will turn things over to Austin Nichols of Nexeo Plastics. Take it away, Austin.
Thanks, Joe. And thank you, everybody, and good day to all for coming. It's great to be here at the Plastics News Executive Forum. I'm here to talk with you today about leading remotely, driving success in a digital world. This is my first time at the Plastics News Executive Forum, and I want to take some time to talk through my experiences and the Nexeo experiences in the past year. This past year has been unlike anything anyone could have imagined. And my personal experience joining Nexeo on March 23rd of 2020 would highlight that. As I think back to the time coming here to Nexeo from my previous life in industrial distribution, my first day was in the start of the lockdown. And I can tell you that I still haven't met a single one of my team members face-to-face. I have yet to meet our executive leadership team, my team, face-to-face. I have not had an opportunity outside of the interview process to meet with anybody other than our chief administrative officer. So it has been a year to remember. And I think this discussion will actually be fueled a lot by the experience of having to reshape and sculpt a business and process without the ability to get in the room with one another. Next slide. So as we look through our agenda today, we'll start with a quick introduction on myself and Nexeo. We'll talk through the importance of technology. I think everybody can admit to themselves that we were all caught a little bit on our back feet as our heels as it pertained to being ready for something of this scope and scale. Going 100% remote in a lot of cases very quickly was a lift for many of us. We'll talk through a bit about what that means for our people, the communication and employee engagement piece. I think we can all relate to feeling a little bit like we're on islands. We're ready for this to be over. How can we make things more normal? And then how all of those two things parlay in defining who you want to be as a business. And we talk a lot about doubling our business. At Nexeo, we say B2X. We want to double our business over the next few years. Well, defining goals and objectives to get there is as important as getting there, because without those, you won't get there. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about Nexeo, and I'll give you a quick introduction to who I am. So who is Nexeo? We're the largest prime thermoplastic resin distributor in the US. We service blow molding, we service extrusion, we service the compounding markets. We are the #1 player in prime resin distribution. Some of you may know us by a few previous names over the years with the long lineage going back to 1973 of General Polymers. I can tell you that I have heard rumors that blue jackets still exist in people's closets, and that at our next national sales meeting, I'll see a few of them. Our footprint is truly global. being the only resins distributor to touch every continent in some way, shape, or form. And we're excited to continue to grow that footprint. Nexeo Plastics is a standalone business owned by One Rock Capital Partners, and we are investing in our future. The last 12 months since I have been in the business and with the new leadership team in place, we have seen great growth and great results. And we're very excited about the direction of our industry as things change rapidly during this pandemic. So I'll give you a quick introduction to who I am. Most people who are attending this forum probably have never heard of me. The last decade I spent in industrial distribution, most recently Univar Solutions. I'm the Vice President of Product Line and Market Management. I am an engineer by training. I did a stint in a startup out of college. I've had my own business, and I spent over a decade in chemical and ingredient distribution. A couple fun facts. I tried out for the Olympic team in 2008 and 2012. I have 3 small kids, and yes, I do have a pandemic baby. My wife and I welcomed our 3rd child, our first boy, 5 weeks ago, and I can tell you that the pandemic has affected every aspect of my life and everybody else's, because I didn't get to go to a single doctor's appointment in the whole time. That was very interesting as a new father and to experience in this time. But I think it translates really well into thinking about this integrated life that we lead in our work-home life balance. It's very different. And the next 3 slides are really going to talk through, what does that mean? How do we make it better? How do we make it enjoyable? Next slide. So I think we would be remiss if we didn't start out by talking about what technology tools breed success. And I'm not going to go into the specifics of what tools to use, but I think it's more important to say, what assessments did we all make early on, and what assessments are we making now in terms of looking at how we support growth in a totally different environment? So Nexeo, we did some things. We did some things like making honest assessments about where we were at in terms of our technology stack to support our commercial operations. And that was not necessarily an easy thing. When we made the shift to remote, and I'm sure most people on this call are asking themselves is, what drove that? What were the bottlenecks? Did you have the IT infrastructure to support it? Was your product team ready for it? Did your sales team, were they prepared to go 100% remote and all the supporting functions that support sales? Where are your gaps? How does your internal marketing platform support replacing the water cooler? This was a huge thing that we diagnosed early on. How do we replace that? Hey, did you hear about this from this customer or this supplier? That is a really hard thing to replace in a virtual world. And how does your customer-facing quote-unquote toolbox scale away from face-to-face to remote phone and email interactions as the predominant interaction mode with your clients? So let me talk a little bit about our story and how we address this. So Nexeo went 100% remote in 30 days. That would not have been possible if we hadn't had an executive leadership team alignment across all phases of our business to drive towards that end goal. Moving a 100% on-premises customer solutions team off-site, working from home, balancing daycare, dog care, everything was a big move, and it was a big shift. We moved our supply chain. All non-essential warehouse functions went remote. That was not the case previously. Our product teams and technical service teams moved remote. Anything we were doing lab-based, we had to stop doing. And when you think about those types of changes, they don't happen in a bubble. They don't happen in a vacuum. You have to have strong leadership team alignment. You have to have strong communication down through your organizations, but it also takes very, very strong IT leadership. We were blessed with a strong IT leader, Rick Castro, who joined our team a few years ago. And on our roadmap, this parlayed and dovetailed in nicely to the things that we were doing to bring plastics resins distribution into the 21st century. But what were some of the things that we did? What were some of the learnings? Well, I think everyone on this call would raise their hand if they tried Zoom, Blue Jeans, Fuse, Teams, Skype. I think those first 30 days, 90 days into the pandemic, we all saw these different modalities popping up. And if you were smart and bought Zoom stock, this might be your last trade show. But at the end of the day, there has been a consolidation and people have moved towards some platforms that are very reliable, very safe, and they're changing that customer supplier experience. We're delivering supplier and customer updates in a way we never thought. Video. It was always fly in to meet your customer, fly in to meet your supplier, let's get in a conference room, go to dinner. Those things are changing. And I think one of the things that we have to think about as we go forward is how does this scale into the future? And we'll talk about this at the conclusion a bit, but what does getting past the pandemic mean for our businesses? What will normalizing the now of being in the pandemic mean for your business? What will it mean for our industry? Everyone craves that Amazon-like experience, but in resins, it's a bit different. Amazon doesn't deal with rail cars. They don't deal with break and bulk or boxes. They don't deal with sampling. If you don't like their product, you send it back and then they write it off. That's not how we work in our industry. But how do we chip away at some of those expectations that are being set? And some of that is really built upon the back of a strong IT technology process, strong IT team, and really aligning that across your enterprise. So as we think about what the technology side of reacting to the pandemic was and the leadership component there, let's talk a bit about how that parlays into communication. Next slide, please. So I think all of us who are leaders in our industry and in any industry crave that connection between executive leadership team strategy and the boots on the ground. And generally speaking, I think it is fair to say there are a number of executive coaches out there making a lot of money, helping executives learn how to connect their strategy to their people so that they can go win. For us, B2X. How do we communicate B2X to double our business from the executive vision down to our teams? Well, where to start? How do you even begin? Well, one of the things you do is you have to diagnose and assess what are your people going through? What is the connection with people that needs to be there? How are they feeling? And for some of us, that's not the easiest. A lot of engineers, I'm an engineer by training. I can tell you humbly that sometimes connecting and understanding that can be difficult. That doesn't mean I don't do it. It doesn't mean I don't try. It just means I have to work at it. Living in the times of change like this is hard. We have to create clarity for our organizations. So I start with being deliberate and intentional in your messages. Transparency. Now, this isn't, talking about, everything under the sun, but being transparent with your team about your direction, driving forward, creating that clarity around where we're going is really important. And in this world of multitasking, emails are always up. You got a dog in the background barking. You have to find new ways to connect and keep repeating your message so that your people can really identify and become a part of it and feel like they're contributing to it. I heard a statistic the other day, and I can't give you the source, but it was instead of telling people 3 times in this age of pandemic, you have to tell people 7 times before they hear it. I can tell you from experience, it's somewhere between 3 and 7 is what I've learned in the last year. So how do you do that? Well, there are a lot of new ways to engage via digital channels. And I'm not saying these are the be all end all, and you're not going to replace face-to-face and phone calls in the future and one-on-one meetings in offices. But there are other ways to connect. From my seat, what I've done to connect with our commercial teams is I put out a video blog. I try to do it weekly, but sometimes it stretches because we're all busy with what's going on in the markets. What's happening from a product management perspective and a supply perspective, and how can I connect what the team is doing to our executive leadership message to the rest of our commercial organization so they can see how we are supporting them in growing their business. We've also set up blogs internally, mixed reviews, 50-50. People like them, people hate them. They think it's just another place. They think it's the most amazing thing. The one thing I can tell you is that just try things. There's no shame in trying out a new communication channel And then following up to your teams and ask them what works. So we launch a new technology platform to help support the team. We launch a new communication channel, create a feedback loop, be able to check back in. How is it working? Do people care? Is it enjoyable? Does it make them feel better at their job? Does it make them actually better at their job? And as you're going through this, we start to realize the professional and the personal aspect of working is merging. And to make sure that you're connecting with your people and you're keeping them engaged, recognize that, own that, connect with your colleagues. I can tell you that household distractions are quite possibly the highlight of my job. I have a product line leader, Danny Kenyon, who works for me. I know his dog Chipper quite well. Chipper loves to video bomb calls with a dog toy in his mouth that makes the funniest noises I can possibly imagine. I've met a lot of my teammates and the people who work for me's children. I've met in a team virtual happy hour. We even met a chicken. You think about these things and how you create a culture that matters, that people feel connected to, that make people want to work where you are. That's how you connect. That's how you keep people engaged. And that's how you bring people into your vision and how you drive forward. Our vision of B2X starts with our people. We can talk numbers all day, but it's all about how we connect and communicate with our people. So let's talk a bit about what that means. Next slide. So as we think about our teams and our goals, we've heard a lot of discussions this week around doubling our businesses, finding the pathway to organic growth, finding the pathway to growth through mergers and acquisitions, building a sustainability mindset around packaging. I loved the talk from McCormick earlier this week. That was fantastic. But as we think about how we get to those end states, it's really important for us to consider how we define our teams. And it's not just the whole team in an enterprise, it's each team in their functions and how that team's goals define the enterprise success. So I'll run through, defining your mission, setting goals, and empowering your team. And I'm going to use the examples that we've used in product line and market management to really sculpt who we are and change who we are from the perspective of where we were. So in terms of defining our mission, we have a mission statement. The mission statement is create an environment where people are committed to each other while being open and excited about the future. I want to hone in on that a little bit because it's not our mission is to grow. Our mission is to do this. Our mission is to be committed to each other and open and excited about where we're going. And that's a bit open-ended because in product management, at least in our world, that can change drastically. I think at the beginning of this, before hurricane season, we were full steam ahead, drive volume on our olefins business and drive specifications in our specialties business. That was how we were supporting our sales team. We were putting plans and processes in place and marketing support to drive those two goals. And since October, everything changed and all of us feel it every single day. 8 of our top 10 suppliers on force majeure allocation. That is a significant dent to that vision. But because we're excited about the future, because we're open, we've been able to pivot that. How do we make our systems and processes more able to support our sales team in these unprecedented times? We talk about setting goals collaboratively. I can tell you from personal experience, I am 1 year into this role, setting goals in our budget season last year, in an industry that I do not come from, required a lot of collaboration with a strong leadership group that works for me. And that group set their goals to roll up to the enterprise goal. And we're very transparent about how we do it. We set measurable KPIs to drive the cadence and culture of our business. And we're sharing our enterprise goals and how our team's parts play into that. I'll give you some examples. Our team historically has not provided a level of marketing support that I would expect. We now have marketing goals for our product team to help drive that expectation and that support to our sales team. We want to humbly serve our sales team in securing more wins with our customers by solving their problems. And we're going to stress and support our strategic suppliers in that adventure. And in this process, you have to empower your team. I'm not going to read the bullet points here because I'm going to talk through how we did it. The first thing that we did once we established our leadership team was a simple stop, start, continue workshop. And a lot of people on this call have probably been through them. They're not complicated to set up, but they're very complicated on the output. But what we did was we created an environment where everybody on the product management team got a voice. We clearly defined who we wanted to be and where we wanted to go. We used it as an opportunity to purposely build our brand and how we would support the rest of the organization. A number of our outputs were things that would make our customer service teams' lives easier, that would make our purchasing teams' lives easier. Our goal is to be collaborative and share. We are working hard to make sure that our team is doing the things that make the rest of the business make more sense. And this came from the team. This wasn't an executive goal from on high. We empowered them to solve their problems. So as you define your team and you define your goals, it's really important to think about what that means and how you would do it. And I'm finishing with this versus finishing with the IT side, because without a strong platform to support a virtual work environment, these last two slides on communication and defining goals just aren't possible. A quote I'll share with you as I wrap up here is, in the last 10 years, or in the first 10 weeks of the pandemic, there has been more innovation than the last 10 years as it related to B2B. In the first 10 weeks of the pandemic, more innovation than the last 10 years. And I think we're all seeing that accelerate. So in closing, I'm going to ask you, how does your team look different? My team looks very different. Our job descriptions at a core almost look different. How does your business behave now versus 2019? That's an interesting one. I hope my presentation sparks some thoughts for you all as we build that trust and accountability to drive success in the new normal for our businesses. I know that in our business, we've experienced that. We've embraced it, and we're driving it forward. You'll continue to see us as a leader in the marketplace, driving innovation, bringing plastics resins distribution in the 21st century. And with that, I'll close and open it up to questions.
Thanks, Austin. Terrific presentation, and enjoyed. I'm sure a lot of companies out there going through similar challenges and trying to get their goals executed. Also, as you see on the bottom of your screen there, you can send us ask a question by typing it into the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your virtual screen there. Or you can also use our LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube platforms to send us a question too. We'll be glad to take them in the order that they receive. Got to ask to start off, what Olympic sport were you competing for when you were doing this in 2008, 2012?
The most television-friendly sport ever, rowing. That's a joke. The least television sport, no money, just pure adrenaline and fun.
Great, excellent. Well, let's get to some of the questions here. Austin, what's the biggest challenge that Nexeo faces in connecting with its teammates? Obviously, doing things virtually is much different than you haven't met anybody in your team basically face to face. So you've gone through this, and what challenges do you face not having met some of your teammates, so to speak?
That's a great question. And I think one of the things that I have learned in the pandemic that's the biggest challenge is if someone meets someone for the first time over an email, their perception is very different than if they meet them for the first time over video. I think the age-old example is if you watch the Nixon-Kennedy debates back in the day. Mm-hmm. Nixon won on the radio, but Kennedy won on the video. And you can get a very different perspective on, especially first impressions with your team. And one of the ways that I've really tried to address that is I ask my team to turn their cameras on. I ask customers and suppliers to turn cameras on so we can try to get that connection, because it's very easy to always feel like you're on an island, in your house, in your home office, in your den, or wherever. So I think that would be my biggest takeaway so far. just from that personal
Great.
connection.
Be able to see people. It's easy to misinterpret messages.
Yeah.
Sometimes I know email we can do that, and text we can do that in some cases.
Yep.
So seeing the person actually helps, I guess, with that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Excellent. Question: do you see business travel changing in the future, and if so, how? I know I haven't been on an airplane in the past year, and I imagine you haven't either. But are we going to be still going to meet customers and doing face to face, or is this going to be changing? Is this going to be the new normal? I guess we don't travel too much.
It's a great question and something we've talked a lot about as a leadership team at Nexeo, and we've talked a lot with our suppliers and we've talked with our customers. I think there's a couple dynamics in play that we have to consider when we answer the question. Things will never go back to where they were. So I think, we talk about getting through COVID, and one of my colleagues, Jeff Collier, our chief commercial officer, always talks about we're going to get through the pandemic, but the pandemic's going to leave fingerprints on our industry and all industries. What'll be interesting is how companies handle the risk associated with on-site visits as we go forward through the pandemic. I could see where some companies take a very conservative approach and don't let outside visitors on campus like they used to. So that could change. I don't believe we're ever going to get rid of our standard operating procedures for visiting face-to-face. I think face-to-face sales and face-to-face strategy meetings will continue to persist. But I do think there will be a greater reliance, especially as we lap a year and people start looking at T&E budgets, in this next year. A lot of us didn't spend money on travel this last year. And I think a lot of our suppliers and customers are going to look at that and say, well, do I have to travel as much? I can see them coming to the executive forum next year, but maybe we don't send as many people to a trade show. Maybe we don't send 3 people to a customer supplier visit. Maybe we find ways to get more creative in how we interact. But I don't think it's going to go away. I just think it's going to be changed and possibly a bit reduced.
And let me ask you generally, has the distribution business changed quite a bit due to the pandemic? I imagine you had much more face-to-face and relationship building in the past with some of that. How has the distribution business changed?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we have seen a reduction in face-to-face. What's absolutely fascinating about the pace of distribution, so especially with everything that's gone on with availability, distribution intrinsically a lot faster than what you would see in a direct channel, just because the breadth, depth, scale. Our P&Ls are people; they're not assets. Outside of warehouses. So that is our asset. The number of interactions has skyrocketed in sales and technical service and product management for our organization.
Really?
Skyrocketed, but the interactions are different. So in technical service, we have I want to say the numbers, we've almost doubled our interactions with customers, but the interactions are different. It's a lot more tech support. Hey, I'm having an issue. And it's less of, hey, can you help me make this? Because a lot of our customers aren't making new stuff. They're trying to get things out. They're trying to solve for the now. And so it's a bit more reactive at the moment, but our sales teams are having great conversations with customers. The power of a video conference is becoming greater as it's being more embraced by all sides. So the number of interactions is definitely up from a sales perspective, but the dynamics are just a bit different.
How are they communicating right now? Is mostly just Zoom calls and phone, or are there some innovative ways that the sales reps are communicating with customers?
Well, it's funny. So in our outside sales distribution business, our outside sales team is a wily bunch. I mean, the number of people who are texting, FaceTiming, using Zoom, that is what's happening. We've had our tech service team do Zoom calls where the technicians at the molder, at the extruder, video conferencing what's happening live to our tech service team. And if you don't know Nexeo, we have 20 tech service people who are helping with processing and engineering questions in my organization. And their whole job is to make it easier for our customers to specify and troubleshoot, at the mold. And so they're having to think differently. How do you pitch my skill set to the back of the house so that they can use me? So, but typically we're not seeing anything, outside of the video calls, a lot more presentations, I can tell you that, and just a lot more video interaction.
Yeah, I understand that. But it's just like we're doing a lot more webinars too and
Yeah.
presentations from companies. I guess your IT guy Rick must be busy right now. I'm with this, and I should ask you: do you see IT back end as a point of differentiation in the new world? Is that really the linchpin for some of the changes anyway?
I think so. As I consider, one of the big reasons why I came to Nexeo, from my previous life is Nexeo has a fully integrated end-to-end ERP CRM, so that we can manage the supplier and the customer in a way a lot of people in the space can't. And I think you've seen some announcements where there are other distributors who are realizing that this is a critical portion of their business. This isn't a back of the napkin business in the 21st century. We have to be thinking about how we differentiate ourselves to create a more Amazon-like experience, as I talked about earlier, even though we're not going to be that, and Amazon's not going to be us. It is absolutely critical. I think you're going to see more consolidation in the industry as people start to realize the expense of doing that. We're just blessed in the sense that we're already there and we've been there for 10 years to support our suppliers and our customers.
Definitely. What challenges do you think the business will encounter with IT, and some of us, or have you encountered anyway with some of this?
I think the biggest headache that us and other people have experienced is how do you get your teams remote quickly, and how do you create an engaged experience from an IT perspective remotely? It's very difficult, and I think all of us can relate. You don't have a commute anymore, so your workday starts earlier and ends later. And so as we get back to normal and people start going back into offices and we start traveling, how do we ensure that employee experience translates through, and that our IT products that we consume as a business scale back nicely into the adjusted world? I think that we would be remiss if we didn't think that, as things open back up a little bit, as the vaccine rolls out and people start getting more comfortable, the pendulum will swing the other way a little bit. We just have to be prepared to say, hey, if people start printing again, I don't know that our IT teams even thought about printers, right? Because no one's printing anything at the office. So I think when you start to think about those peripherals and what might be needed, it'll be interesting to see how we adjust.
Here's a question that's coming in. Curious, you talked about the clarity of vision and really repeating a message 3 to 7 times in some cases. How often do you communicate both with your employees and with your clients out there? Have you increased some of that? Are you communicating a lot more often than you have been?
Yes, I can tell you from my personal experience. At the start of the pandemic, I was not communicating enough, and I realized it when we would have team meetings, and I would ask my team, kind of probing at where they were in terms of vision and how they thought we integrated with the other teams within Nexeo. And I found that for me, it was very important to, I'm not going to say double or triple because I don't have the exact number, but I went to a weekly cadence with my team. I added a video blog that I could share, like a weekly market update, strategy update for the commercial organization. We created a blog internally that I've asked that every single one of the product managers contribute to. And that took a little bit of time to get going, but almost every single day, our product team has a communication internally to our commercial organization or operations teams about the state of what we're doing, how things are moving, what supply issues are we seeing, where are things opening up. And so for us, it's been about diversifying the channels to try to meet our employees where they want to be met. A great example is, as we talk about replacing the water cooler, we started an internal podcast. We've done 2 of them so far, long form, People and Pellets. And what I do is I interview someone on the team, and we talk for 20 to 30 minutes about what they do and then who they are. And the overwhelming feedback has been, wow, I know that person after listening to that. Now, that's very hard to scale to 700 people, but it is just one way we're trying to connect, with our team, keep them engaged, drive that collective culture of who we are.
Excellent. Well, we're almost out of time, Austin. I guess I should ask you if you have any parting comments or final words you want to leave our audience with today.
Yeah, I would say that if I'm thinking about the next 12 months of where we're going and what we're doing in the plastics industry, high water is going to raise all boats. We have to be thinking about how we can contribute to the, collective, good in this environment of crazy supply issues, etc. Thinking about how we can make this the industry people want to come to. How do we continue to attract people? How do we continue to build up the industry by bringing in young talent? This type of presentation today talks through some of the things that are attracting people. We are attracting people at Nexeo. We are doing the right things to get young people in our business. And I would say what I would leave this group with is think about that. Think about how we bring people into our industry, because it's a great industry.
Excellent. Well, terrific, Austin. Terrific presentation, and thanks for answering all the questions that came in and responding, telling us about what the new normal is going to be, and some of the positives that'll come out of it too, with leveraging some of the digital technologies.
Absolutely.
If you have additional questions for Austin, please feel free to reach out to him directly at the email address that's listed on the screen. So you can see that there, and he'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. Don't forget to tune in at 2 p.m. Eastern Time today for our next session at the 2021 Executive Forum Virtual Edition. We'll hear from our Processor of the Year panel, featuring Doug Callahan of MMI Engineered Solutions, Kevin Hogan of Diversified Plastics, Mike Ruggieri of Comar, and Dennis Prishak of Plastic Industries. It'll be moderated by Plastics News editor Don Lepp. It'll be subsequently followed by our Processor of the Year ceremony, where we'll honor our top processors and announce the winner of this year's Processor of the Year award. Finally, you'll have a chance to interact with this year's winner and finalists via video in a Meet the Processor of the Year discussion. I'm Joe Pryweller with Plastics News. We'll end with a message from Nexeo Plastics. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.
For more than 45 years, customers turn to Nexeo Plastics for our plastics resin expertise. As a distribution partner, we understand that the right product needs to balance ever-increasing demands for quality, competitive costs, and sustainable solutions. With thousands of products from world-class suppliers, our team of experts can deliver the flexibility and innovative solutions you need, when and where you need them. At Nexeo Plastics, expect more so you can do more.